this whole industry is starting to change overnight. Khalid is joining me, and you see this whole area of DeFi being very, very important. Before we do that, tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I'm actually a CeFi guy. Most of my career was spent in Credit Suisse, Moody's, centralized finance, call it the old world or the old system. And I had a ringside seat at the last financial crisis, and I saw all the incentives, all the mechanisms that led to disaster, inequality, all these challenges, these social challenges we've seen. And I genuinely believe decentralized finance, sort of trying to move more into a peer-to-peer type of economic and financial system, is a large part of the solution to fighting inequality, having more inclusion, and within this region in particular, thinking about the considerations of halal and ethical investing in Islam, how we sort of bring those populations who are excluded into this new sort of safe space, as it were. And for me, in my whole 25-year career, it's the first time I genuinely feel we are at the cusp of a transformational event. So I'm an evangelist about DeFi, as you can see.
I hear what you said about, I feel it's time. Does the industry itself feel it's time for a change, or are they just as resistant as most?
Look, incumbents are never the best people to go to for change. You know, you've heard the story of Kodak, first to invent the digital camera, but didn't move into digital. Banks will have a challenge cannibalizing their own business. Because if you think about a bank, you have people, you have processes, massive overheads, massive expenses. If you can replace that whole institution with a whole bunch of smart contracts, protocols, tokens, you get huge, massive scales of efficiency. Now, asking them to sort of change themselves, cannibalize themselves, it's not the best place to start. I think you will, as we're seeing now, you'll have a lot of new players grow and get scale, and then probably within 2 to 3 years, or even shorter, you'll start to see M&A, acquisitions. You know, JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon always coming out swinging against crypto. Now, guess what? I think they were just trying to stall the market. They will come in and they will start, whether it's buying Coinbase or, you know, that there will be these consolidation, and that's the way that they will come into DeFi and crypto, in my view.
2 words you said I wanted to touch upon. First is Kodak. Kodak had to change what they were. They became, obviously, a photo company to a chemical company is what they had to rebrand themselves as. And they were taken down because of the digital space just destroyed them.
Yeah.
They saw it coming, but they were almost ignorant to believe it couldn't take them down.
Exactly.
Do the incumbents feel the same way?
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, in my previous role, I used to be head of all the banks in the region in terms of analysis. They make so much money doing what they do already. Now, asking them to say, and their shareholders are doing very well, you know, and the shareholders are who they please. Now, asking them to say, well, let me take a risk on this new space, etc. Most of them are in a wait and see mode. There is a lot of risk. There's a lot of challenges, AML, KYC, all these sorts of things. So I think, and to some degree, they're right to wait to see how it plays out, but there will be a massive first mover advantage for institutions that combine the sort of regulatory and consumer comfort of banks, where people like to see that there's a bank there and there's an institution. And if they manage to co-opt the technology advantages of blockchain and DeFi, those institutions, I think, will just grab market share. So, you know, there is an evolution, but at the moment, banks are sort of most of them are staying on the sidelines, especially in this region where banking is still very profitable.
The other word you used was evangelize. I want you to think about evangelists throughout history. They were the first to go in to educate. Evangelize means to educate. And I hate to say this, if you go back to just religious times, evangelists were generally killed first. The second place ones are the ones that won.
Yes.
Because someone's already evangelized it.
Yes.
And Apple, by the way, proves this. Apple has never been the first to come up with anything. They're always the second place winner. So isn't evangelizing a bit challenging?
It is challenging because trying to create a new market from scratch is a massive challenge. And as you say, the second person looks at what you did, thinks, I can learn from all those mistakes and do it better. But another sort of seismic change that has happened, the community that you're evangelizing to, they actually have the ability to directly support your project day one. So we don't need to actually convert the existing incumbents to say, support us. We believe we're doing something with a vision. The community, and particularly in the case of Marhaba that we'll come to, around 80 to 90% of our support has actually come from the community, not from VCs, not from institutions, from the community saying, I love what you're doing, I need this, how can I? So that disintermediation, I think that's very powerful right now. So I think I'm not uncomfortable being an evangelist because I think we can get support from the right people because of technology.
Because the crowd finally has a real voice saying this is what we want.
Yeah.
The crowd does. And what is that? What have you created?
Well, simplistically, the DeFi ecosystem is interesting. Speaking to a lot of our investors, Muslim and non-Muslim, they say the words ethics and crypto don't really go together. Crypto is about making money, as much money as you can, as quick as you can, and guess what? If you lose money because of scams, frauds, rug pulls, that's part of the game. You know, you're getting 100x here, but you're losing here.
You're saying it's gambling is basically what you're saying.
Gambling, calculated risk, I mean, whatever you want to, whatever sort of terminology that you use, because my sort of DNA is actually as a more risk analyst, you know, conservative governance person. And I look at this industry, and for sure there's a huge amount of risk, but there's a huge amount of potential reward. And look, for me, investing in a new technology is not gambling, in my view. But that's, you know, if my colleague was here, you know, from a Sharia perspective, he could talk about that. But that ecosystem, so we thought, you know what, we're trying to bring in the masses. If you look at DeFi, that 250 billion TVL number, I think there's some chain analysis report that says 80% is from accounts with 10 million or more. If you add in family offices, high net worth individuals, you're probably talking about 95% of that is the 1%.
Right.
So what's happening to the other 99 who are getting crushed by inflation? We saw the US inflation numbers. We know there's 25 trillion of money printing. Those communities are getting crushed, but they're excluded from the wealth of the cryptoverse. How do we bring those people in a way that's safe, ethical? We're not trying to pump and dump. We've got a very long, sustainable roadmap, lots of different things, and particularly for this region and, you know, the 1 billion plus Muslims worldwide who have a sensitivity to interest-based income or usury, debt, trading in debt, borrowing, lending to people. This is not seen as an ethical practice. How much of DeFi protocols involve lending? Probably 50, 60, 70%. So we have a Sharia board of highly talented scholars who are both fluent in tech and Sharia. And they screen tokens, they screen protocols, and they give us, you know, call it a whitelist and say, look, we can invest in these. Wow. And then on the tech side, our CTO algorithm goes through, scans all of the halal pools, and will invest your funds in an ethical and Islamic way. And the ethics part is nothing to do with gambling, nothing to do with pornography, weapons, you know, those typical sort of elements. So you can come in safe in the knowledge that, one, there's a team committed to ethics, consumer protection, protecting the community. And a lot of our sort of protocols and processes are about, even our offering that's happening next week, we're not trying to put the price as high as possible. We want to make sure that we can sustain a longer term growth rather than, unfortunately, it's the consumer that comes in at the top and then gets wiped out when it crashes. We actually opened our pre-launch rounds to the public. Usually it's VCs and high net worths that get in. We have over 1,000 retail people that came in from $50 to like hundreds of thousands because they needed this. And
what's the website?
marhabadefi.com.
Spell that out.
Marhaba. MAHARBAHA. Marhaba. So, you know, I can't spell on the screen.
But you said it like that.
Yeah, Marhaba DeFi. MARHABA. Sorry.
Now,
DeFi,
people need to understand this is different than an exchange.
Yes.
Really important to understand that, right?
Yes.
Can you explain the differences between the exchange and the DeFi?
Sure. The exchange is a place where you go to exchange your stable coins for Bitcoin or Ethereum, and The exchange will take a commission and give you a price, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just the same as equity exchange, or they're not particularly different, but still in the region, the regulations around crypto are still relatively nascent.
Zero.
So license, regulation, et cetera. DeFi is a set of protocols built on top of the blockchain that effectively should allow you to do sort of peer-to-peer activity, self-custody. We will have interest-free lending and borrowing on the platform in the future, wealth products, etc. Now, there's a bit of a contradiction in the sense that we're DeFi, but we have a tech team, we have a Sharia team, which kind of a bit of a contradiction because we're centralized to a degree. But the aspiration is that in the future, when all the tech is built out and all the protocols are built, we can hopefully make ourselves redundant by turning it into a DAO or a DAG where it runs by itself.
Your committees are for compliance purposes. They're necessary, aren't they?
They're necessary, but there's a body of knowledge within the minds of our scholars that potentially can be codified. And so the moment you can codify,
that's the DAO.
Then you can maybe you can have oracles out there. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can have a community of scholars that actually is responsible for the governance and using the token. So it's a completely revolutionary way to run things. And when I look at
wait, step back. Don't you think you possibly maybe misbranding a golden opportunity? Because if people want, and I'm saying non-Muslims, if they wanted to invest something that's ethical, that has all the qualities of what you said, you're almost not marketing to all of them. And that's a whole massive population too, right? Listen,
you've really hit upon something here, because even internally with our marketing team, how do you be, so we've got the tagline, what is it? Inclusive, ethical, simple, I just remember a fantastic call we had with one of our investors, a crypto trader who was from Malaysia, and I just assumed that the lady in question was Muslim. Turns out she was Catholic. She's not even interested in investing in tokens. She trades, pattern trading, etc. And she says, but I've never seen anybody try to do something ethical before. Yeah. And for me, that's what's missing. And she's one of our, chunky investors.
I want to invest. Right? I'm hearing this right now going, this is what I've been looking for, because I look at index funds. I really don't know why they pick those, other than I'm looking at the interest and the growth of them. You're giving me a storyline. People want to connect with the story.
So this is, as you say, it's a very important challenge because we definitely want to be inclusive, because it is for all humankind. If you look at the problems, it's not just Muslims who are suffering, it's everyone that is suffering from money printing, inflation, falling real incomes, etc. Muslims didn't invent a prohibition on interest. Usually Catholics, Jews, even the Greeks before them, they all had an idea that interest-based income, there's something fundamentally wrong with me getting rich the poorer you get. It kind of puts you against each other, whereas equity, we share the risks, we share the gains, and that's a very simplistic analogy. So absolutely right, it's inclusive, but what's interesting, there is actually an Islamic finance sector, which is very quantifiable, lots of numbers. It's worth about 3 trillion US. If you ask me how big is the ethical space, I couldn't tell you. But we know there's a population. Now, if we have 1% penetration, that's 30 billion TVL. That's like 1/5 of total DeFi, 1%. Now, a 1% target isn't particularly ambitious. And so because there's a nice data set there, we go where the data is. So we're very data-driven, we think about the markets, but this will be open for everyone. Your current account is probably paying you, what, 0.5%? If you're lucky.
Wrong guy to be talking to, right? But most people.
Yeah, most people. Inflation's running at 7 in the US. Your income, your wealth is falling. In the cryptoverse, using stable coins, you can make 5 to 15% return. and that's stable coins. So obviously there's still other risks like counterparty risk and regulation, but we can make a mass retail product. We'll be launching in Q1, a wealth product that says, we're going to keep version 1 super safe. We're not even going to let you invest in altcoins because when you lose money, you come screaming to us that so we're going to make you stay with stable coins, and 5 to 15% for a lot of people is an amazing return on USDC or BUSD, et cetera, et cetera.
So going back to exchanges, you need to partner with them. How are you knocking on their doors saying, look at us, we need to work together?
Well, I mean, ultimately, the launch that we have coming next week, it's a bit of an intro. The big exchanges, it's very asymmetric. You have to pay them to list, or there's a 6-month waiting list, and so on. But they have all the liquidity. It's almost like a guaranteed success. The smaller exchanges have much more limited liquidity, but you can negotiate a better deal. And so, at the beginning of our journey, we could only get the smaller ones, and so there's an inflection point. When do you sort of decide and so on? But we'll actually be deciding in the next couple of days. We'll be doing some, our event will be next week.
But you understand, ethical investing is very difficult, okay? Let's talk about transparency on your side. How transparent are you going to be to the people that invest?
Oh, I mean, look, if you look at some of the other projects, you don't see who's behind them. You know, when I don't see people putting their names and their reputations to a project, is that your kind of get out of jail clause? Like, if you look at us, we're like, we all of the team have reputations from industry, but that was part of one of my big concerns about joining a crypto project. I've worked 25 years to establish my reputation. I can't put it into a project where I don't know the people, and I started small, quietly, and once I got to know them and saw what they were doing, that's when I sort of, okay, this is legit. And everybody, the team, everybody knows who they are. So that's one thing. The other thing, in terms of, I'm a huge believer in alignment of interests. The team are on 36-month vestings. They're not going anywhere.
That's a big deal, by the way.
Yeah, because
it means they're holding their money in there for at least 3 years.
Yeah.
Where are you based?
We're actually incorporated in Australia. Some very sort of solid crypto laws, very advanced, etc. Will be probably soon opening in the UAE, an entity here. So because
isn't UAE a little more stringent? I know that like Tariq Mohammed and the groups here, they really want a different level of compliance. Is it harder to get an infrastructure like that in UAE?
Well, the good thing is, look, Marhaba is a technology product, and actually, because of my past life, I'm very sensitive to regulation, Securities Commodities Authority, central banks, etc. And I don't think it makes sense necessarily for Marhaba to be facing those guys. So what we're doing, we are sort of partnering with regulated entities and jurisdictions. So here, it was made public a couple of days ago. We're partnering with an institution called Masari Capital. Their intention is to launch fully regulated exchange, remittances. So by being our partner, there's a nice complementary sort of skill set. So in each jurisdiction, regulation will be a key element of bringing retail and institutional money into the ecosystem.
You have to be so excited about this.
I am, yeah. I don't know if it comes across. But
no, I can imagine, because you really are breaking a lot of traditional rules, not negative ways, but in the way of the incumbents have been thinking to make this happen. So you're a change maker. You literally are. So you're an evangelist that's going to make a change that will have success doing it. So congratulations with this.
Thank you.
Again, people want to find out more. What's the website?
marhabadefi.com.
Thanks a lot for hanging out with us.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Ken Rutkowski. We'll be back with more interviews.